Welcome, everybody, to this latest special edition of Unfinished Business. I'm your co-host, André Joseph of AJ Epics Productions. And as always, the main man himself, Mr. Jeff Gallashaw. Say hello.
Hey, how are you?
And for this week, I have a very special guest, a very personal friend of mine. Her name is Marlene Rhein. She's an award-winning filmmaker, writer, and actor, best known for such films as The Big Shot Caller, the short film My Parents Are Crazier Than Yours, and her web series The So-So You Don't Know, which features Sachi Parker, the daughter of Shirley MacLaine. And she also started out in music videos. You directed Tupac Shakur's last music video, All About You, in 1996, as well as the late Amy Winehouse's F Me Pumps in 2004. And you were selected Filmmaker Magazine's one of their top 25 faces of independent film. So Marlene, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I'm very glad to have, for the viewers that we have here, to be introducing them to your amazing work and just the long career that you've had so far. So the first thing I like to ask any director that comes on, what got you started into filmmaking?
Since I was like 4 years old, dancing music was like my first love, creating stuff. Like as a kid, I would always like make up these scenarios and make all like the neighborhood kids act out I would be like, okay, we're in the library, I'm the librarian, and you're checking out books. So from like kindergarten, I was like, kind of directing and starring in my own little productions without knowing it. I just, and my family life was a little bit tough, a little bit of a dysfunctional family, which I'm sure a lot of people can relate to. And creativity was my way out, my salvation. And I just used my imagination to escape all the time. And very early on, I kind of knew, like as a kid, I wanted to kind of be a storyteller, a writer, a director. I wanted to dance, I wanted to act, and somehow like, I had a sense of compassion. I wanted to like put stories of love out into the world somehow.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of the impetus. And then right out, I studied film at Ithaca College, and then I came out to LA with like $40 in my pocket and stayed at the YWCA with like roommates and stuff. And I used my credit card to start shooting videos for unsigned rappers, and that's how I kind of started with music videos.
Wow. Okay. When you were growing up, were there any particular movies that influenced you that, you saw it and, you really wanted to like get into show business? And were there any directors that influenced you on the way?
When I was younger, I never really cared so much about directors. It was more like the feeling that I had in the movie theater. If movies like Rocky, Officer and a Gentleman, being there, um, had a real impact on me. I was amazed that you could be a captive audience somewhere in the dark for 2 hours and be so moved that you would cry or laugh or come out like with a whole new dream of your future. Like movies could do that. The power of music and images, like poetry, like right to your soul. I just knew it was something I wanted to be a part of. Um, Caddyshack was like my first rated R movie. I went just because I loved animals. I was like, oh, it's going to be about this fun gopher. Little did I realize it would be so raunchy, but the gopher had a cool little dance.
Yeah. Sadly, my introduction was Caddyshack 2 on
Oh,
video.
youngster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So also I've noticed in your work that music is certainly a big component of anything you do, music and dance in particular. How has that affected your work throughout your career?
It's just influence. So the movie that I'm trying to get made right now is called When the Bass Drops, and it's about I'm going to play this character who's in her a little younger than me, but mid 40s, who hits rock bottom and decides to go for her childhood dream of being a hip hop dancer in New York, despite the obstacles for her self worth. It's kind of the passion project of my life. I started writing it over 20 years ago. Um, Hard to get made because I'm not a star, and raising money, blah blah, without name actors is a whole thing, which is why it's taken so long. But music is just so huge. Music, dancing, it's something I live for. It's like this feeling at 2 a.m. on the dance floor when you're not even in a body anymore. You're just freed by the music. It's a spiritual thing. And it's just so huge for me. It can't help but affect the things I write and what I make. Not every I write a lot of dark comedy, so not everything has to do with dance, but music is certainly a huge inspiration. And I kind of grew up loving both old school hip hop, like Rakim, I believe is the greatest MC of all times. You know, dancing to Rakim is like Eric B and Rakim, Nas, EPMD, Kool Moe Dee, that whole thing. And then I also sang in a punk band, and Susie and the Banshees is like my other favorite group. Music is just huge, huge for me. And informs stuff I write even when it's not really about music, like the So You Don't Know, dark comedy about urban loneliness. And that's something that loneliness is a pandemic before COVID even came around. It's something people still suffer from, and it's something that's affected me deeply. And I wanted to explore that, but with comedy. So that's um, I wrote, so that's the web series that stars the very talented Sachi Parker. I rewrote it as a 30-minute show. We pitched it to networks last year. They passed. So I'm actually reworking some elements, and we're going to go out again to networks soon with Margot Martindale attached as the therapist.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah, because I mean, I worked as a AD on that first episode, and I could definitely see thematically how you were really capturing how difficult it is to date in New York City and dealing with that level of loneliness when everybody's just pretty much, instant gratification and then move on to the next thing, especially after COVID. I mean, this project was way ahead of its time. I think now you need a story like that to really connect with people that are still dealing with that type of issue at the moment.
Yes, it's amazing to me that people treat each other as disposable. Like
Mhm.
can, it's just ridiculous. Like how could you not see the sacred in yourself and other people and have that sort of integrity and respect and value connection? So it's like this sort of fear of missing out on what's around the corner or what's next, or just so easily like dismiss someone you've just met, even when there's a connection. It's just kind of baffling. So it's something I definitely want to explore, and maybe like you know the show. My goal is to like entertain and make people laugh, but also like kind of ask the question, what if we could love ourselves more? Would it change who we meet, and would it make life better, and would people start reacting to us differently because we won't accept less than you know
Yeah, I think that's totally the key to the whole thing. And I think it's something none of us really ever think about. We get so caught up in like getting rejected so many times and feeling like it's got something to do with me, maybe the way I look or what I'm into, but then wait and say, wait, personality wise, I don't think there's anything wrong. It's just my attitude towards it. So yeah, I totally think, you could easily expand on that theme.
Yes. Yeah, there's so much self-loathing with everyone. We grew up in this really crazy society where whether it's our parents or caretakers, not fitting in initially as a kid, not fitting in later. Of course, as a kid, you're going to tell yourself, it's me, I'm defective. And so when someone rejects you, it's automatically like, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough, even though it's mostly all about the other person. But as a society, I think so many of us deal with such low self-esteem, and it makes it really difficult.
So I want to go back to when you moved to Los Angeles and you came with almost next to nothing in terms of connections and money. I mean, that's a story I think a lot of us hear about when we're trying to break into the business and, you want to like, get through the gate and meet the executives. So how did you go from that to getting the gig directing Tupac's last music video?
I think about that a lot because I think about how easy it felt like success happened back then as opposed to now. And I think I was less jaded, less disappointed. So, if you want to look at it like spiritually or whatever, it's like I had more faith. I was more open. I believed that anything was possible. I used my credit cards. I started shooting a few videos. My very first job in the industry, I worked on an Ice Cube video. I was like the script supervisor, and I PA'd on another West Coast video. And then I hooked up with Tracy. Daniels, I think is her last name. Sorry Tracy, if I forgot. But Look Here Sound Vision, they had just done How Do You Want It with Tupac. And Tupac wanted a female director for his next video because he was being accused of not, being misogynistic, whatever. And I was the female director. So I remember like Tracy not really telling me what's going on. Everything was very secretive. And they took me to this meeting in the Malibu colonies. And I thought it was like one of Tupac's artists. I didn't realize I had no preparation. And they took me to to Tupac's house in the colonies. His mother was there and these like 7 dudes. And there I was, this like, white chick, not, no, having to say what I plan to do for his next video. I was so unprepared. I was talking out my ass basically, but I wound up directing this $300,000 3-day shoot, 35 millimeter with Tupac, who was cool. And I got along really well with him. He's just like a cool, down to earth person with vulnerabilities like anyone else. It was insane. I didn't eat for like 5 days. I was so nervous. I was like 26 years old. It was like the biggest video I've ever done in my life. I was shy, except for when it came to like creativity and filmmaking. I believed in myself in that respect, but I was still so shy and nervous and felt like in fear, like, fuck, I'm directing a Tupac video. What? What? You know? But I just realized like this is Tupac. He's a human being. He's cool. We're hanging out, getting along. He asked me if I wanted to get high with him in his trailer. I should have, but knowing that I'm such a lightweight, I was like, I'll be fucking on the floor. I can't do that. I need to be in charge. But I wish I had, because it would have been an experience.
Yeah.
But it was like a time when anything could happen. Because I didn't have in my head all the disappointments that would come later, all the rejections. Like I didn't have that. It was like anything was possible. So I believed it and I manifested stuff like that,
Yeah. Yeah. Jeff, did you have any questions so far?
Not so much questions, but I guess an observation. Again, I only have seen your work on YouTube. So, but one of the things I've noticed throughout like your web series, your short films that I kind of admire is that you offer a humanitarian look no matter what you do, even when it's like dark comedic or just light comedic, like even with what is it? Sorry, I got to go to my notes. Let Me Tell You a Story, my favorite, where you're playing all these different characters, but you're like kind of continuing a story through, and you still have like that couple usually in the background making out, like, which can be distracting and adds comedy even when you're telling those like dark moments of the story. I truly liked, and I don't care about the assholes, where basically you have all these different characters, but they're all complaining about the same thing from different perspectives and kind of like in their own language. And I really enjoyed that.
That's really, I'm so glad you mentioned that, Jeff. That's really cool. Because I think that if you're going to have people as a captive audience to your work, I loathe anything that doesn't have any depth. I mean, not to say that like some entertainment can't just be like superficial entertainment, whatever. There's a place for that, I know, but I loathe anything that doesn't have that depth, because if you're asking people to sit in your work for a given amount of time, give them something to bite into, give them something they can relate to. Like, we go through so much shit as human beings. How could you, I don't know. I don't think I could create anything that didn't touch upon something where I'm reaching out to connect to other humans. Like, hey, this is what we're all going through. We all feel this. We all feel hurt or alone. Like, let's bring that to light. Let's do filmmaking with depth. Like, that's how I feel.
I'm just curious, Marlene. Do you take any influence from Tracy Ullman? Because when I watch your skits like Angry Gladys,
Yeah.
I'm getting those Tracy Ullman vibes, the way that she creates different characters and accents, and still being like hilarious and very realistic and all that. Did that have any sorts of inspiration for the work you do?
Absolutely. Yeah. Like when I started out, it was Tracy Ullman and Cindy Sherman. Like that's who I wanted to be, like to play all these different characters and do it like authentically and well with humor and depth. Like that was my goal, to be the Cindy Sherman of filmmaking. Yeah,
Nice.
for sure.
Yeah, so then after your time in Los Angeles, you moved to London, and had a completely different experience there, and then eventually getting the job directing Amy Winehouse. How did that come about, and what was the experience like being a filmmaker in London?
Well, so I was living in LA for 10 years. And while I was there, I just started to really hate it here. I from New York, and I hated what felt like superficiality, and like I just felt completely alone, like with no substance of life here. And I always felt a bit more at home in Europe. So I decided just, I'm going to go to London and I'm going to direct videos there. I didn't know anyone there. I didn't know how it was going to happen. Again, it was that younger mindset of like, fuck it. You don't think of like, is this going to be worth it down the road? Will I succeed first before, will the fear stop me? No, it just, I'm going to do this. I did it. I went there and it was scary because I secured a few meetings, nothing was happening. And finally, I got represented by this little company called Spidercom. And it was where Guy Ritchie was repped. He only had done this crappy little short film, and he was friends with one of the guys who ran. Anyway, bunch of dudes there, very small company. And I wound up getting work, and it clicked because they're more cerebral over there, and they really respect art and ideas and cool shit. Like they go a little deeper there, and you can come up with ideas and they get excited about it. Music's a big thing over there. And I was at home, and I wound up like, I directed this one video for an R&B group with they did a cover of uh, Freak Me by Sweat. And I did it in 35 millimeter, and they wanted the look. I did this Adidas spec commercial when I was in LA that was all about underground dancers, and I choreographed it, and I did the look just like that, really underground. I had capoeira dancers and Rottweilers and all this cool shit, and it went to #1. And so then I was like kind of sought after, and I became one of the top 10 music video directors for R&B and hip hop in London. And it was incredible. Best time of my life. I got to travel around Europe and the world, paid for to shoot videos everywhere, and my ideas were respected. And it was um, it was a great time. And I was able to come up with really cool ideas that I would never be able to do over here, which was more commercial and lowest common denominator thinking. Such a great time. I kind of wish I stayed, but it was a time when things were leaning towards boy bands and pop music, and I just felt like, and also as a music video director, I don't know if they still do this, but what they would do is they'd send you a track, and that time it was either cassettes and then it was like CDs. And they'd send you a track, but they'd send it to like 7 other directors. You come up with an idea for free on your own time. You'd spend like 3 days coming up with this amazing idea you thought, and then they pick someone else, don't even let you know. And I was like, fuck this, man. Like this is, it just I felt unhappy. I felt like I'm not on this earth to make like pop videos that say nothing. I want to tell stories that matter. I'm meant for more. That's what I felt like. So I kind of stopped doing that. I was going back and forth. Back and forth. I moved back to New York, and I was still kind of going back and forth. And it was one of the last videos that I did in London. It was for Amy Winehouse before she was like really big. She was like just sort of gaining traction over in England, called Fuck Me Pumps. We shot it on Brick Lane in East London. And it was like of course, like rainy, gray day. And we didn't have much of a budget. So it was the one where she's got a microphone, like carrying it with the cord all throughout the streets. And very cool, like tomboyish person, which is kind of like me. And we got along. She came to the edit all by herself and was like, yeah, fuck yeah, this is my favorite video so far. And very cool. And then she left. Very down to earth, tomboyish kind of chick. And that's how that happened. It was before she really blew up, before like her big album got released here.
Mhm.
But a lot of cool stuff happened in London. What a great time to like be free to be creative and get paid for it and travel and like, so great.
Yeah, no, that's the dream. And I've only been to London twice on vacation. And I tell you, it's a whole different experience than being in the States. And just they're more into the art than, like you said, the more commercial part of being in the United States. And everybody's only concerned about this. They're not concerned about, just the value of the story, really.
Yeah.
So now you did one feature, and that was The Big Shot Caller, and you shot that in New York. How did that idea come about, and what were the steps that you took to get it produced?
So I had already written the first draft of When the Bass Drops, and I realized it was such a big film, it was going to take a while to make. So I thought, let me back it up a little bit, write something really low budget that I could like star in, and I had my brother in, and wound up um, teaming up with a friend of mine, Christine Giorgio, and she produced the film. We got independent financing. It wound up being like $250,000, and it was something that we did like super independent. Shot it in New York in about a little less than a month, and then we flew to Colombia, South America. That's where my mother grew up. So my grandfather was a Holocaust survivor. He was like 100 at the time, or turning 100. So we went down there for this one scene with him and my brother, and had him like narrate in Spanish, because that's like the twist at the end. It's like the grandfather telling the story. Um, and yeah, it was I remember feeling like, holy shit, I've never been so alive. Like, I'm actually making a feature film I wrote. We're doing this. I remember like the van, the production van. I remember like the RV driving around the streets of Manhattan and almost like knocking it into, like just the stories and the team and how everyone becomes a family, and you'd go to sleep at night and hit the pillow like, I'm making my feature. Oh my God. Like, it was so great. It's so great. I miss that.
Yeah, I was rewatching it the other day, and two things stood out to me. One was Lania Wiles, who I know. She was actually in my first feature film, and wonderful actress to work with. Also, I just really paying attention more to the story this time around. Really, I felt like this was almost a precursor to So You Don't Know, because it was somebody that, was jaded by romance and very insecure and finding some level of confidence through dance. I guess that was like a recurring theme throughout your work. Was that something that was pre-planned?
Um, I knew that I wanted to be somewhat like When the Bass Drops, which is the next movie I'm trying to make. So I kind of had that in my head, but I think I always gravitate towards stories of people with low self-esteem but huge soul, and who want to express it but can't. It's almost like Little Voice or whatever. It's like having this huge roaring lion of talent or soul inside you, but having this layer of low self-esteem. It's like, how does that inner talent come out when you're so afraid of the world and so afraid of what people think of you? It's been kind of like a recurring theme for me, I think.
Yeah. And what was it like directing your brother? Did he have experience as an actor, as a dancer before this film?
No experience as an actor, but he was a really great salsa dancer.
Mm.
So my brother has congenital nystagmus. Wait, I can't remember the name of it, but he has no irises, and he'll never be able to like drive a car or whatever. He's visually impaired. But he's an amazing salsa dancer, and so that's I wrote it kind of like around him. So I had to like do a lot of directing with him and coaching, but he's kind of a natural in a way. But he's a professional salsa dancer, or he was. So it was just the acting that kind of needed a little coaching. He got mad at me sometimes.
I
I'm
can
like the
imagine.
bossy older sister anyway. So sometimes he'd be like, Marlene, I get it. Enough already.
And then obviously you were in the film playing his sister. What was it like directing and acting in your scenes? I mean, I know I've done that quite a few times, and of course helped you out when we did So You Don't Know, but what was that experience the first time having to do it on a feature?
It's always challenging. I've done it so many times. It's always challenging. It's crazy. It's crazy because like you're sitting in the makeup chair thinking, all right, now I have to like get out there and be vulnerable and be sensitive and frail like a 4-year-old so that the emotions come out. But at the same time, you're thinking I have to manage this crew and they have to know I'm the boss, and like I need to know what's going on, or what's holding us back. And so it's like these two warring elements within you. One is like trying to hold everything together and be the commander in chief, and the other is this like needing to be sensitive and vulnerable for the acting to seem authentic, and for the emotions to come out and the humanity to come out. However, having said that about the challenging aspect, I fucking love it. It's like I thrive on it. It's like it just becomes like this second language, like you just know, like, all right, camera's on, I'm into it, and I love it. I love it.
Nice.
I'm really bossy too. Maybe it's the Aries in me, but like
Yeah.
I know exactly what I want. I know how I want it. I can tell when it's good or when it's not, and I thrive in that, and I love doing it. So it's like game on.
Yeah, no, you have to be that way when you're on set, especially when you're dealing with so many different personalities. Speaking of personalities, what was it like working with Robert Costanzo in that film?
He He was nice. He was nice. We didn't spend, he was only there for a few days. He was a nice guy. I didn't really get to bond with him too much, to be honest with you. Yeah.
Is there any aspect of filmmaking that you like more than the other? Do you like directing more than you like acting, or whichever part of the process that you are like the most excited to do when you start a project?
Honestly, it's writing. I love writing. I love sitting in a corner. Writing is a very lonely thing. And so I do a lot of it at cafes because you could be alone but around people. But I love sitting in a corner somewhere with my cold brew and almond milk and lightning strikes, and you get ideas. It's like, holy shit, like you've got all the magic there, and it's like anything is possible. So I just love writing so much. And editing, which is a lot like writing because you're like kind of rewriting the story. I love the editing too. Those are my favorite parts. Writing for sure. Directing is tiring. It is. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And the other thing I also wanted to ask, going back to so you don't know, so you got to work with Sachi Parker, I guess from the second episode on. What was that like? And were there ever conversations about her mom, like, hey, can you maybe talk your mom into doing a cameo on the show, or even just
Um,
like sharing stories?
yeah, definitely shared stories. I read her book too. It's so interesting. She told me a lot of stories. Like, holy cow, I can't believe her mother treated her like that. Like, really insanely jealous and manipulative. And like, you could see why someone would be traumatized after.
Right.
Um, but, and she tried to reach out to her mother, but Sachi published a book about, it's called Lucky Me, Life with and Without My Mom, Shirley MacLaine. And after she published that, her mother like cut her off. And so Sachi was trying to like reach out to her all the time, and her mother was just so cold to her. So it would have been great if but the thing is with the relationship, at least at what I've learned about it from Sachi, is her mother like never wanted her to succeed as an actress. In fact, blocked some very big things from happening for her. She was like going to be in a Ron Howard film, and Sachi had her, I mean, Shirley had her agent call Ron Howard's agent, say, if you hire her, I'll blacklist you, whatever. Like she threatened
Oh.
her. Like, so Shirley never wanted her to succeed as an actress. She didn't want to be overshadowed. So she was never going to like help us.
Yeah, I mean, now thinking about that, just going back and remembering some of the episodes that you did, that character, the psychiatrist, became more vulnerable as it went along. You figured, like right from the jump, it was going to be the character that tied all the other patients together with their issues. But then to see, like, oh no, she's got her set of problems, you could kind of see that she was probably channeling that pain in certain moments in the later episodes.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Yeah, Sachi's such a great actress, such a great actress. I mean, it's really amazing to watch great actors who bring so much to the table, because when you're willing to be a little crazy and vulnerable and going for stuff and taking risks, there's magic that happens. And initially, the character that I had written was a little more tough and ballsy, but then like Sachi kind of brings this vulnerability to it. So I kind of rolled with it and opened it up for that aspect for her to shape the character a little bit. But it was like magic, coming together.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, Now you did a film called I Used to Dance, which was a short film, and you shot that during COVID. Tell us about that experience and how that idea came about.
I just wanted to create something. What happened was we had gone out with the So You Don't Know as the TV series. The networks passed on it, and it was so devastating because you imagine, like, I spent all my resources, time, money on this. Even from the conception of the web series, I wanted it to be on TV, and it seemed like it was going there. It had momentum and like people were interested. I was like, oh my God, in my head, I'm going to make a TV show. Finally, it's going to happen for me. Finally, after all these decades in the industry, and then to have it not happen, be dead in the water, and like, oh my God. So I went through maybe like what seemed like an 8-month depression of just I couldn't pick up a pen again because it felt like, what's the point? What's the point of creating with any kind of hope if it's not going to get made? That's how I felt. And it took a while to kind of get my mojo back. And then I thought, I'm just going to make something I can shoot on like a phone or something, but have it be experimental and raw and real about the the way I felt on the dance floor and how knowing if I knew the pandemic was coming, I would have danced every night uh, until it closed, had I known. So I kind of wanted to make this 5-minute film about that feeling.
Yeah, and did you have to assemble a crew for that? Like, how many people worked on it?
Two. I had two women from my screenwriters group, Margina and Pam from my South Bay screenwriters group here in the South Bay, LA. And they came and helped me. And we did it like super lo-fi, but had a great time. Feels so good, feels good. You create something and you just do it. And such a good feeling. Although later when you apply to film festivals and get rejected from like 90% of them, that sucks. Because you're like,
Yeah.
you know, that's always a bummer. I feel like part of me never wants to like send a film to a film festival again because it's like, I don't know, it feels more like who you know than I don't know if that's just me being bitter, but that's what it feels like.
Oh no, there's certainly politics wherever you go, and a number of festivals play their favorites, or just they take your money, they'll say that you're accepted, but then they don't actually screen your movie. I mean, that is frustrating. And I've kind of gotten to that point, even with my film that I've done recently, where I'm saying, you know what, it's good if I go to festivals, it's great if I can win an award, but I got to push it myself if I want to get an audience to react to it. I think that's the key. So if I got to take it to schools, if I have to do public speaking engagements, that's what I'm going to have to do. I'm just going to have to hustle because I can't rely on these guys to take my movie and then, oh, here's the schedule. And then you have to do all the legwork to promote it. It's just, it's a little, I think it's getting more overrated now, especially with COVID doing more to like have online screenings be more prominent than physical in-person events.
Hmm. Mhm.
So now, obviously, you're still trying to get When the Bass Drops to get produced. In addition to that, what else do you have coming up in the future, or that you'd like to get together with in the future?
Well, so when the base drops, we're trying to raise $2 million. I thought about doing a crowdfunding for like development money, but I crowdfunding is hard, like I hate asking people for money and I don't know. So I'm not sure about that, but we are trying to package it right now and attach some actors. My friend Davy Crockett, talented producer, is on board as producer. She produced the movie Shithouse, which won awards at South by Southwest. So she's on board, and we've been working on it. We worked on the script together to make it even better. The script has won some awards and competitions, and it's placed in semifinals or finals in quite a few, which is encouraging. And we've partnered recently with Slated.com, who's kind of come on board to send the project out to their investors. So that's currently happening while we're trying to package it. So that's kind of main stage. And then the So You Don't Know, I've rewriting it with a different slant, and I think it's going to be called Love Thyself as a series. You like that?
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
Cool. So those are the two things I'm working on right now.
Nice. And with When the Bass Drops, are you still intending to act in it, or are you going to
Hell
find?
yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
should. I mean, if
I'm gonna.
Stallone could do it, you should.
Yeah, I know, because it's like I, I try to tell people it shouldn't be a star in that starring role anyway. It's also not that I'm the most amazing dancer out there. There are definitely like so many better dancers, but I have such a passion for the music, for like the old school hip hop and house, that's what comes across, and that's really what the story is about. It's like about loving this music so much that it can make you forget any sense of self-loathing or smallness or depression, and being in the music reminds you that you're a lion, that you are the fire, you are the music, and you're bigger than you thought. And there's a line in the movie where the choreographer, who like wants nothing to do with my character, very much like Lou Gossett Jr. to Richard Gere from Officer and a Gentleman, finally she pays attention to me and she's like, "Hey, white girl, why did you want to be a hip hop dancer so bad?" And I say, "Because every time the bass drops, I remember who I am and why I'm here. I feel like I am somebody in the music." And that's kind of what it's about. So, yes.
Yeah, I mean, you're the one who can best connect to it than anybody else coming into it.
Definitely.
So Marlene, where can people find out more about you, see your work, and if they want to support you, where can they go?
So my website, marlenerhein.com. That's MARLENERHEIN. And they can always email me through the website. Um, and I can answer questions or tell them how they can support me. Because I don't have any like crowdfunding things up right now, but if people email me, I can I can direct them what to do.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Jeff, any questions or final thoughts?
I like your
Um,
thoughts. Jeff. Shoot
Yeah.
'em out.
Oh, no, I just had a question about your, I guess, web series or your series of shorts, Angry Gladys. I was just wondering, with those, was it trying to create a comic character and also maybe venting of maybe your day-to-day frustrations you might have with the world?
Jeff, I think you should be my new therapist because you see exactly what I'm doing. Yes, it was
Okay.
totally Angry Gladys is the embodiment of my pet peeves. So basically, I feel like maybe not anymore. I used to be really passive aggressive and really angry. Like, what's with all the fucking cell phone users who talk out loud when in public spaces and you have to hear their conversations? It gets me so mad. Or like you're walking down the street and someone's texting that and it's more important than looking to make sure they don't bump into you. Like just the rudeness of people with cell phones. So I created this character to vent how I feel and to make people laugh along the way. So I play this older woman in a perpetual like moo with fanny pack, and she like cleaning up the streets of New York one asshole at a time. Angry Gladys.
Well,
I should finish that.
okay. No, I enjoy it because it's, well, from my understanding, since I was figuring, oh, maybe she's like venting, but you do it in a creative way and not in a more antisocial or destructive way. So, that I saw it as like art as therapy plus as entertainment for others who might feel the same way.
Exactly. Very well said. Yes, yes, and yes. I know. I think I want my friend. I was talking to my friend Jennifer Ostrega, who helped me with that, and she said she's going to come out to LA and visit, and we would do more Angry Gladys. I guess I would do more about cell phones because it's still an issue, but I think I'm going to do so. I'm going to bring Angry Gladys back. It's something that you could shoot on your phone. I have to
Yes, definitely.
put a moo. Yeah, moo gray wig. Yeah.
Yeah, I could definitely tell you from experience. Like one thing that I really don't like is if I'm on a date with somebody and half the time they're just checking their texts
Oh my
right in
God.
front of you on the table. It's just the most annoying thing in the world.
I know. I know. I've gotten so angry like every time I'm in a cafe trying to write and there's someone who's got the phone on loudspeaker, like how rude is that? So now I just start pretending I'm on the other end of the conversation and I like chime in until they get it, and sometimes they don't. It's just I don't know. I don't know. I thought of a device that actually I want to write a film called The Schmuckbuster, and it's about this guy, kind of like the Big Lebowski, who develops this device that fucks up people's phones when they're like, you know, being inconsiderate with their phones. The Schmuckbuster.
That would be a lot of fun.
That's my next film.
Yeah. Yeah, so Marlene, I think as we wrap this up, I just want to kind of say to you that I really do believe from the work that you've done and the things that I've seen that, your films, your scripts, they speak to a lot of people that are dealing with depression, loneliness, and even just the sense of wanting to feel accepted or belonging. And I think more people really need to pay attention to what you do. There's a reason they said you were one of the top 25 up and coming filmmakers, because I think you have a voice, you have a story to tell. And it's my hope, through So You Don't Know and When the Bass Drops, that it will expand to something much larger and that people will eventually pay more attention to your work. And that it goes beyond just awards and festivals, but something that I think would be culturally significant for everybody.
Thank you for saying that so much. Yeah, tired of being broke.
Yeah.
I do. Yeah, my biggest dream is to get my work out there, for people to see it, for sure, for sure.
All right, so that brings us to the end of our show. Marlene, again, thank you for taking the time with us to speak with us about your work. and hopefully everybody could come and follow your work on your website and on social media. Jeff, any parting words?
No, I agree totally with what Andre said before. I can't wait to see more of your work. I hope it gets out there, and I hope your audience just keeps building.
You guys are awesome. Thank you for saying that. I really appreciate being here, and it's been great. Thank you.
Yeah. And on that note, we bid everybody adieu.